When Rob Prichard stepped down from his position as chair of the Metrolinx board of directors in July, he said new leadership at Queen's Park meant it was time for new leadership at Metrolinx as well. Over the course of almost a decade, he served as chair, CEO, and president of the GTA's Regional Transit Authority. So if anyone can answer the burning questions about efforts to get the region moving, it's him. And Rob Prichard joins us now for more. Good to have you in that chair.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
I'm not going to operate under the assumption that everybody knows what Metrolinx is, because it is one of those organizations that's sort of out there with a big responsibility, but not necessarily a lot of attention. So let's start there, please. What was the mission of Metrolinx when you were there?
Metrolinx is the regional transit agency for Greater Toronto and Hamilton area, GTHA. It's responsible for running the GO trains and the GO buses. It's responsible for building a plan for the future transit in the region, and is responsible for building new infrastructure. So the Eglinton Crosstown Regional Express Rail, the Up Express to the airport. So building, planning, and operating transit, carrying about 75 million people a year, and working with the other 9 transit agencies in the GTHA, like the Hamilton Transit Agency, the TTC, Durham, York, working in a coordinated way with them, but not running them. Partners with them.
Were you guys the deciders?
We're the deciders for things that are in Metrolinx's jurisdiction, but we're not the deciders for the TTC, for example, which is our partner, not a subsidiary, but a partner.
And I mean, we suggested in the intro, the new government led by Doug Ford suggested to you that it was time to move on. Was it as simple as that?
No, I suggested to myself it was time to move on. I'd done it for 9 years. It was a wonderful run. I loved it every day. But to do that job, you have to have the full confidence of the government. I'd had that confidence of the 2 previous governments, and I thought with a change of government, change of direction for the province, it was time to have a new chair of Metrolinx. You're only meant to do these jobs for a maximum of 6 years. I'd done it for 9, so it seemed like the right time to go.
Okay. How would you gauge whether or not Metrolinx was successful while you were there?
I don't think there's any doubt that we were successful, not because of me, but that the organization. If you look where we were 9 years ago and where we are today, the progress is pretty phenomenal. The improved service in GO, the increased services in GO, and indeed yesterday, the government announced even another large increase in service for GO. So the improvements in GO, the new infrastructure from the Up Express to Eglinton, all of that's going on. The plan, what was the big move, the plan to take us to 2031, now a plan to 2041. There was no plan. There was nothing being built. There was no expansion taking place, and now all of that's underway. That said, we're 9 years into about a 30-year project, and so in many ways, the best is yet to come, because it's a bit like a snowball where you get things going in the right direction and you get momentum, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So we've made a lot of progress.
Well, let me pick up on the analogy. If it is a snowball going down a hill, you know, there's a new snowman at Queen's Park right now. He gets to decide whether or not that snowball is going to get smaller or bigger or move off in a different direction. Do you have any sense about what the Ford government wants to do with Metrolinx now?
The Premier hasn't said much on the topic. He has promised a dynamic transit system for the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area, so he's spot on with that. He hasn't spoken about the details, the institutional arrangements, and the government hasn't come to grips with its fiscal plan, and improving transit costs money, and so I think the new government's going to have to integrate how they're thinking about the finances of the province and what rate of investment they can make in this. But Mr. Ford has been elected in large part because of the 905 region, so continuing to improve regional transit is at the heart of his voters' concerns. So I'm optimistic they'll fundamentally stay the course, potentially with some fine-tuning of the direction.
He's also made it unambiguously clear that he loves subways over light rail transit, etc. You remember the mantra when he was at Toronto City Hall, it was subways, 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 along with his brother, who was the mayor, of course. According to every transit expert, the subway that they want to build in Scarborough makes no sense. It's a $3.5 billion today, maybe 4 or 5, who knows how many billion by the time they get it done, and it's one stop. Could Metrolinx have stopped that?
I don't think so. Metrolinx's analysis was that there was not a case for a subway. Metrolinx supported building the LRT to replace the Scarborough Rapid Transit. That is the position Metrolinx took and has never wavered from. Metrolinx continues to have that as its position.
But you can't tell them no, right?
So that's been our position. We don't think the numbers support the cost of a subway. We don't think the traffic does. We think an LRT is the right answer. That said, the Prime Minister of Canada, Mr. Harper, the Premier of Ontario, Ms. Wynne, the Mayor of Toronto, Mr. Ford, and Mr. Tory, they've all agreed they want to have a subway. Well, at some point, they pay the bills, they can instruct, so and the three levels of government all agreeing on a point of view. We've had elections where no one has dissented from that point of view who's won election. So at some point, no, Metrolinx can't stop it. Metrolinx can control how much the province should contribute, and we've done a good job on that of keeping the provincial contributions so far to the cost of an LRT, and the city was picking up the additional costs. So Metrolinx can have influence on it, but at the end of the day, if the political leadership of the federal government, the provincial government, the city government all agree on a direction, pretty tough for us to dissent.
I get you, and that's sort of what I was alluding to in my earlier questions about who the decider is, because I guess people want to understand better, should the politicians, who are not necessarily expert in these things, or should the experts who may not, who don't have to get reelected, who ultimately should have the final say in these matters?
The experts have to run the agencies, whether it's TTC or whether it's Metrolinx. We have to run them like a good business. We're moving tens of millions of people. We're 75 million people at Metrolinx, 475 million at TTC. These are really complex agencies where safe, high quality, efficient transit, that all is should be left entirely to the management teams and the experts. Where it gets harder is on the plans for which of the many forms of infrastructure we need built, which one should get the priority. And on that, I think the role of Metrolinx is to give really good advice, highly analytical work, carefully considered costs, benefits, alternatives, networks, all of that, and to be as persuasive as we can be with the political decision makers. But at the end of the day, the decision to spend $1 billion or $3 billion or $5 billion and whether to build this or that at any particular moment seems to me fundamentally a decision that those that are accountable to the public are going to have to be responsible for. So not surprisingly, they have a point of view. That said, you raised the Scarborough subway. Of all the projects we could have talked about, let's say we've got 50 projects underway, 49 of them have come from Metrolinx, are on plan, are exactly what our long-term plan says need to be done, and we're doing them. Scarborough subway is the exception.
Can I push back on that a bit?
Sure, by all means.
Isn't there another exception? I mean, when he was transportation minister, didn't Stephen Del Duca tell you guys, I want 2 extra stations in parts of York region that are near my constituency, and you guys opposed it, and he went ahead with it anyway?
So,
am I kind of accurate on that?
You're half accurate, and I think Minister Del Duca would probably, with the benefit of hindsight, wished the matter had been handled a bit differently. But this is 2 stations in the context, so $100 million or so, in the context of a $15 billion expansion of regional express rail. And that expansion of regional express rail is what Metrolinx has argued for, is now well underway. It's the transformation of GO from a commuter rail into surface subways across the GTH. So it's a magnificent project. The exact location of 2 stations, I agree, it wasn't handled perfectly, but in the scheme of things, I view that as de minimis rather than large.
I get you,
but the key point is, we built a plan. It was unanimously adopted by the previous Metrolinx board. That plan has been directing the vast majority of what's happening, and that's a plan developed by planners and experts, not endorsed politically, but developed. And almost everything we do and will be done going forward is in accordance with that plan.
But how many times over your 9 years of Metrolinx did some politician kind of buttonhole you after a meeting and say, look, I don't care what the experts say, I don't care what your great advice is, I need this to get me reelected, and so I want this? I mean, that happens, right?
I would say at every political level, there is active interest in transit projects because they affect every citizen, right? It's not because that it's outside their prerogative. The citizens in each ward or each riding are affected by these projects. So politicians are there advocating for their citizens.
So you're not offended by that when
I'm
that
not
happens?
offended by it at all. My view is the job of Metrolinx is to give the best possible considered advice with all these competing forces, be articulate, be thoughtful, be evidence-based, and at the end of the day, be respectful that ultimately the leaders of our federal, provincial, and municipal government have the prerogative by virtue of being elected, they can make the ultimate decision. But we should make it very hard for them to make a bad decision. And the fact we're still talking about the Scarborough subway is good news in that sense that there is this continuing tension between good planning and good transit analysis and the political decision. And so it's remained, but Metrolinx has done a good job of keeping that issue in play while being respectful that the ultimate decisions are political.
Do you have a view as to whether or not, we're going back to Doug Ford here now, Premier Ford has said he will look with, actually, I think it's more than he will look with interest. He would like to see the subways that are currently run by the local Toronto Transit Authority uploaded to provincial responsibility. As a guy who worried about not just how subways were working in Toronto, but how transit was working region-wide, do you have a view on the advisability of doing that?
It's a hard issue because the subways are fully integrated with the rest of TTC. That said, Mr. Ford's proposal is they be uploaded for financial purposes, but the TTC continue to run them. So it's not, in that sense, it's not a profound issue if they're still going to be run. And I think Mr. Ford's reason to want to do it is an accounting reason. He knows the provincial government needs to invest in building subways. Subways are very expensive. And the way provincial accounting works, it's much easier for the province to pay for a subway that it owns than it is to give the money to the city for the city to own it. So the Liberals have said the same in the past, that from an accounting point of view, it makes sense for the province to own the subway. So it doesn't need to be more than that. But it could be more than that. That is, if Mr. Ford were to go from the accounting point to actually wanting to decide everything about subways and run the subways, that would be a profound disruption of TTC.
And you would favor it or not?
I would not favor separating the operation of subways from the operation of all the buses and the streetcars and the LRTs that feed the subway, because it's an integrated network.
Okay.
So from an operational point of view, ownership doesn't matter. I don't care about the ownership, but operationally, we have to let TTC continue to do a very good job.
You've just laid out how Metrolinx is responsible for tens of billions of dollars of infrastructure being built right now. And yet I have heard the Premier say on numerous occasions that one of the reasons he wants to reduce the size of Toronto City Council is because you can't get any decisions made there. And here's the quote, "Nothing's been built. From the time when my brother was the mayor of Toronto to today, nothing's been built." Is that accurate?
If I were still the chair of Metrolinx, I'd invite Mr. Ford to come for a ride on the Up Express. I would invite Mr. Ford to come and visit the Eglinton Crosstown. The Eglinton Crosstown is the largest infrastructure project in Canada.
100 yards north of here.
100 yards from here. It's a phenomenal 19 kilometer long, 11 kilometers in a tunnel. Fantastic project. It's on budget. It's actually under budget. It's on schedule. It's a beautiful piece of work. It's being built. The Mississauga Transitway has been built. Thing after thing after thing has been built, and it's up and running. Services are improving.
So why does he say that? Why does he say nothing's been built? It's pretty clear lots is being built.
That's his prerogative to say what he wants, but on the facts, a lot has been built, and a huge amount is underway, and it's being done by Metrolinx, and it's being done really well by an expert agency with an outstanding management team, run like a business. So it's actually, if you look at the accomplishments of the past decade by the provincial government, the creation of Metrolinx, removing the politicians from the board of Metrolinx, putting in place a professional management team and building it out is one of the major legacies of the past 9 years.
Well, let's follow up on that, because I started by asking you what your mission was, because I think Metrolinx, for all of the good it is doing, a lot of people still have no clue what it is or what it does. And there's a woman named Jessica Bell, who was a founding director of an advocacy group called TTC Riders. She ran in the last provincial election. She's now one of the NDP members of the Ontario legislature. And here's what she had to say back when she was doing her former job. What can be done to improve Metrolinx? Most obvious, it's time to drop the secrecy. The agency is spending billions of taxpayer dollars. We should know how they're spending it and feel confident it's making the best transit planning decisions. Just a question about how transparent things at Metrolinx really are. I guess, according to her, not as open as they should be. What's your take?
By law, Metrolinx is required to do certain things in public. By choice, Metrolinx has chosen to do everything in public, except for commercial contracts that we enter because we want to have competitive pricing, so we don't do commercial contracts in public. Everything else is done in public. It's all there. It's all subject to provincial audit. The provincial auditor comments on it. The books are there. Our reports are there. So
Where's your headquarters?
The headquarters is in Union Station.
When you have board meetings, can people go?
Board meetings are public.
So it is open to public.
Every board meeting has a public component and then a private component to deal with contracts. But the public sessions, our plans are all public, our decisions are all public, our business case analyses are all made public.
So she's wrong.
I believe she's wrong. I believe Metrolinx accords the highest standards of public administration and public agencies, and it's all subject to freedom of information as well. So if anything we don't provide can be asked for and is made public.
Okay. A couple of minutes left. I should touch on one more thing, and that is when Presto works, it's really very good. It took a long time to get launched. It took a long time to implement. It's had some technical issues along the way. And by the time it was finally done, and I guess I should say for people who don't live in Toronto, Presto is where why don't I just do this? Because I got mine right here. Presto is where you take your little green card, and instead of using tickets or tokens or cash, you just tap this thing, and it's fabulously convenient, I have to say. However, some people are saying it costs too much, and at the end of the day, it's kind of yesterday's technology. Shouldn't you be able to just take my smartphone out and put that against some reader and get into the subway or the LRT or my bus that way? Your view.
Presto is absolutely foundational to having a modern integrated transit system for the Greater Toronto Hampton area.
But is it yesterday's technology?
On the technology, your phone will be the Presto card. We did a demonstration, I think it's only 6 months ago, at the Metrolinx board meeting of the new technology using the phone. So your Presto card will be in your phone if you wish it to be in your phone, and it will be there. So that's the very next step. On the cost, we've been at this since about 2006. The invested cost is about $1.2 billion to date to build the system. As compared to other jurisdictions around the world that have done the same, this is right in the middle of the pack, to build it. The difference in Toronto is very complicated because you have to integrate the 9 different transit agencies, and it has to work for all of them, and it works for Ottawa as well. So in terms of going backwards, the investment is right in line with international standards. In terms of operating costs, the effect of Presto is to save $100 million a year of collection costs across the transit agency. So the return on investment, now that it's built, is terrific. It frees up, it's better for the customers. It allows fair integration. It allows the new 2-hour transfer rule in Toronto. It allows all this innovation, and it saves $100 million a year. It's a big win.
Gotcha. That's our time. I want to thank you very much for coming into TVO tonight and answering our questions. That's Rob Prichard. He's the chairman of Torrey's Law Firm and the outgoing chair. Well, he's now gone. Former chair of the board of Metrolinx. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.